Hi guys, it is day 51 of lockdown. It is Sunday the 10th of May. Today was the day that we were talking about that we were sort of somewhat trepidatious about the whole thing because tonight at 7 p.m. was Boris's address to the nation, which interestingly was a pre-recorded speech that, from what we gather, had not really been run by Parliament or by the devolved nations, Northern Ireland, Scotland or Wales beforehand. So we were kind of dreading it, particularly with the sort of leaked proposals and the way the newspapers kind of covered it, suggested it was going to be a fairly serious relaxing of lockdown measures. Thankfully, that's not quite the case. Essentially, lockdown is still, obviously I should mention, we're in Wales. It doesn't affect us anyway, but it does come across to people like he's talking to the nation, and it will affect it. So it will have a knock-on effect in Scotland and Wales as well.
I'm sure
and also we're quite close to the border anyway, so
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to see the headlines on the papers or going to hear the kind of Cliff Notes version of it and don't really realise it doesn't apply to them in Wales.
He didn't really stress in the address, this is England only, which I feel he perhaps should have. But maybe he wants people in Wales and Scotland to do what he's suggesting. Anyway, but maybe we should go into sort of what he's essentially said. Sorry, I've just realised I'm knocking the computer, so sorry for wobbles. So mainly he's proposed that it's going to now go on a sort of risk level rating system, and that lockdown measures will fluctuate depending on what the current risk level is. Overall, I think that's probably quite a good approach, because it means that they've got the freedom to tighten things back up again, rather than sort of
saying this is the staggered path to kind of release. And
because then people would kick off if they suddenly went, no, it's kicked off, we need to go back strict. At least it's laying the groundwork for that. And it kind of
made it clear what they're looking at, what parameters they're looking at to make these decisions, and what needs to happen for things to loosen up and what could cause it to go back. I feel like that was fairly clear in the messaging. Then
there's a lot of other stuff that as being quite vague and not very helpful. So mainly the one that we that stood out to us is that they've said, okay, now if you're someone who is not working because you can't work from home, he used the example of construction workers or manufacturing workers. If you can go to work, you are now encouraged to do so, but avoid public transport if possible. So I don't know what that means for people who are currently furloughed, who don't drive and do rely and aren't in walking distance or cycling distance to work. Even for those who can drive, it would be very tricky. Let's say you work in London. You can't really drive to work in London because there's nowhere to park your car. So you do still... So it's sort of saying avoid public transport, but do go to work. And then using it only if you have to. Well, there's lots of people going to be like, well, what counts as have to?
Yeah.
That was very vague. And although these measures are being discussed for England, the expectation will probably be that will put pressure to do so in other places of the UK. Thankfully, both Scotland and Wales have both kind of gone against the grain, sort of admitted that they haven't really been consulted on this, and as such, they're following what they think is best for their people, and they're sticking with the original message. Stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. Bojo now has changed that slogan to stay alert, control the virus, save lives. Don't know what that means.
Also, interestingly, changed the colour on the kind of logo for that message from the red on the previous message to green on this one.
Yeah, that I didn't notice at first. And actually, when somebody pointed that out, that did have a slight alarm bells going for me. If that is a subtle, go on then, kind of message, which feels a bit dangerous. It all feels very preemptive. One thing I will say, I was dreading it, and it wasn't as bad as I was dreading. He still sounded quite serious about how important it is not to waste what we've done so far.
And that's really important as well. Hopefully that that comes across when people see like the headlines or kind of the reporting on it, that it's not just, they don't just see, oh, okay, now you can do lots of exercise. They also kind of get the point of the message that it's important not to waste what we've done so far, and kind of have a second peek, and that side of the messaging as well. And the worry is then it just gets reported as, hey, you can go out to the park now.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things they sort of said. Yeah, so now there's no limitations on leaving the house for exercise. He also said you can now sunbathe, you can drive to places for exercise, whereas previously it had been only leave once a day and stay in the vicinity of your home. In Wales, it is still as it was, so you can go out now as many times a day as you want, but you must not travel too far from home.
Yeah, exercise.
And you can't get in a car to go drive to then have a nice hike in the Brecon Beacons or something. You've got to sort of stay in your local area, but you can go out more times a day. Sorry, the little cat has just come running in.
In Wales, though, we are getting garden centres.
Yes. I'm slightly strange.
Yeah, not sure why. I'm not being facetious when I say this. I don't mean to stop anyone who's in a garden centre working. Sorry, leaning out shot to stroke a cat. I don't mean to stop anyone who's working if that's what they want, but it seems to me like if garden centres were essential, they'd have been open all this time. They're not exercise.
No.
And
they're not essential travel. So you're not allowed to drive to exercise, and you're only allowed to drive to work or garden centres.
I presume they've had some people in anyway to water plants and look after, fish and the aquariums that they always have in garden centres. But I'm not really now. Okay, so those stuff going in, but now they're going to be in the front line, dealing with the public, interacting with more people.
If I worked in a garden centre, I think I'd be well pissed.
I don't really. I suppose the owners are going to be pleased because they've been paying people to go and look after stuff and they can't make any money. Yeah. But I don't really know.
Also, I guess they do have quite seasonal stock. So there'd be quite a lot of stock and stuff that actually, if people aren't buying it, will go to waste because they can't be planted and things like that. So I guess maybe that was a part of it. Maybe economic reasons had a little bit of pressure there.
Why they're exempt, but I'm curious because obviously there's a lot of other businesses that are. Just to single something out, HMV, right, is a company that has been struggling for years and years and years to compete against online retailers and streaming and, iTunes and all these. Fewer people are buying CDs and DVDs, and when they are, they're getting them online. So they've been a company that's been struggling for years and years and years just to kind of keep their heads above water anyway. Yeah. You've got to think this has been a time that they've been really hard hit. So like garden centres, I'm sure they're a big chain and could possibly lobby or apply.
I sort of feel like chains like HMV should be falling into more the online retailer category anyway.
Sure,
really.
But
and they could do that during this time.
I'm just not
still
sure.
Do deliveries and things.
Well, that's maybe, I don't know if that's the best example then, but I'm just saying I'm not sure why garden centres are exempt. But I'm not saying that in a kind of sneering.
No.
This isn't on. I'm more saying like if anyone knows, let me know.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I wonder if I think I mentioned it previously when they first announced, because they told us the Welsh measures a few days ago. And I think perhaps it is more. Sorry, we've got a cat-related incident. Shall I pause so that you can deal with the cat?
No, I'm just in a little stroke. You were
it's a little distracting. But yeah, so essentially that maybe it's because people are stuck at home, they want to do their gardening, and that's a way to encourage people to stay at home so they can pop to the garden centre, maybe at the same time as they do their grocery shopping, also go to the garden centre and then buy some stuff which will help them be more likely to stay at home and get exercise in the garden, that kind of thing. It's tenuous, but that I can see a logic in that. As the same thing goes for why they opened up hardware stores, because you'd have to say that's not really an emergency unless it's to buy things for emergency repairs. So obviously, B&Q needed to be open, so if your toilet blocks or you've got a flood or something breaks, you can buy the stuff to repair it, which is essential. But redecorating the back bedroom probably isn't essential. But I guess those shops maybe encourage people to do more work and spend more time at home, potentially. It's tenuous, but I can see a slight logic in it, and also maybe a sense of throwing us a bone so that there's, okay, well, at least I can do that now, so maybe I'll throw myself into a garden project or whatever. If I worked in a garden centre, I wouldn't be too happy, I have to say, but happier than I would be if I worked and lived in England right now, I have to say, because while the measures weren't ridiculously outlandish, it doesn't seem to be sort of like, right, everybody back to work. It did seem to have much more of a, if you can work, you're now going to be heavily encouraged to do so. Ideally, if you can work from home, great, do that. But if you can't work from home, we want you working. So they also haven't released yet guidelines for employers. So potentially people could be encouraged to go back to work as soon as tomorrow, but without the employers having had any information as to how they can make, because it was also, as long as your employers are able to make things safe for you, well, that's down to the employer, not to the individual. And that sort of feels a bit, again, very fucking vague. All of this has been very fucking vague.
Well, if I was in England now, I literally wouldn't know if my bosses were going to be encouraging me kind of back to work this week, because they were sort of saying if you can't work at home, you should be going into work. Well, that's me. But also shops won't be open until June. I work in a high street optician, so there's a retail aspect to that, but also a health thing. They've been open for emergencies. But should they be calling more staff back? I don't know. You know, don't use public transport if you don't have to. Well, for me to get to work, I have to use public transport. Yeah. So I don't really know how any of this applies to me directly. And what's expected
well, there's a lot of that. Well, thankfully, you're under Wales, which theoretically the furlough scheme, well, they didn't actually mention any amendments to the furlough scheme in England. So it may be that if you are one of those people who's currently off work, that your employer can use a little bit of their own sort of initiative as to who they call back in, because they've still the furlough scheme was supposed to be eligible until June, so theoretically that hasn't been retracted, so at least I guess that gives a bit of buffering time for employers to sort of make their plan. But there's going to be pressure, not just because people want to be earning, but employers are going to be wanting to be making some money, because although it's only costing them 80%, well, the 80% of people's salaries are being covered, their rent isn't, their bills aren't, their sort of their property values, all of that's not being covered. So I would have sympathy for an employer who is keen to open up if it's safe, but at least hopefully you've got those few weeks to sort of go, well, how can we make social distancing work in this particular workplace? I'm assuming it's still going to involve a staggered approach to how many people you have in an office space, because the normal number of people in the space you can't social distance. So maybe it's going to be that there's an allowance for a certain percentage of your employees to still be furloughed. I can't really see them getting away with just ending the furlough scheme on the 1st of June, because even in England they've said, well, Boris said in today's announcement that earliest possible scenario, and this is if everything continues to go down as we're hoping. Basically, the main thing they're using to decide what the risk level is what the current R value is. So how many people are getting infected. If it stays basically on this current trajectory, then 1st of June we'll see a staggered approach to primary schools returning. Seems a strange choice to go with primary schools to me. I think I would have thought older pupils that were getting closer to exam age, who are also better able to understand social distancing, would be a better choice, because also, not to be facetious about it, but I imagine parents are better able to handle primary level teaching. Yeah. And I know they're obviously that that age kids are harder to handle and harder to entertain and all of that, but at least whereas if I had like a GCSE maths student that I was having to teach, I'd be like, fuck knows. Sorry, mate, no idea.
I wonder if it's that childcare thing of like, well, parents can go to work and leave their kids.
Yeah, their 15-year-old kids can stay home. So maybe it's so that, I guess
but
there's an argument for that, but I also think you're sending the least safe group back. I think.
I agree. I'm just thinking out loud why they might be doing that.
So that's an interesting one. They also he also said that, again, if everything all goes absolutely perfectly, which I think would be a fucking miracle after the fucking last few days, there's going to be a sudden surge in 2 weeks' time, for sure. Mark my words. But if everything does continue on the current trajectory, at the very earliest, some leisure businesses might be allowed to open by the 1st of July. On the 1st of July, after the 1st of July, sorry, not by. So that could, if Wales followed suit, that could potentially include my leisure business, because I could keep numbers down. So basically, best case scenario in terms for when I get back to work is I'm definitely not back in work until July. It's the 10th of May. So I got a long time of this left, which is fine. I'm not in a rush because I, as I have said, think that we're on course for a second peak, which is going to be worse than the first. All of these measures, basically, we might continue to be on the downturn for the next 2 weeks because all of those infections that will have happened over the last few days won't kick in yet. And I looked at the numbers while I had a bath just before we filmed this, and I was looking at the numbers. The number of new cases that were diagnosed yesterday, same number were diagnosed on the 3rd of April before we hit the peak. So it's not like we're super low and like we were before the start of lockdown. Lockdown kicked in on the 23rd of March and we hadn't hit the peak until around about the 10th of April. The number of new cases diagnosed yesterday, is the same as it was at the start of April. So that is technically, that's like, well, that was when we were on our way to a peak. It's not like we were miles away from it. So I'm not that encouraged that we're on enough of a strong decline to be putting any kind of message out to people that okay, go work and stuff. Also, it's a bit fucking rich that they're still basically saying no, you can't possibly mix households, so no, you can't visit your mum, but you can go to work on a fucking train.
So you will be mixing with your colleagues from all sorts of households at work, but you can't go and see your nieces, your nephews, your grandparents, your grandchildren, your mum or dad, your kids.
Even if you know that they've been being sensible, which you don't necessarily know that about. If you're working with members of the public or other colleagues, you don't know what risks they've been taking. Whereas at least if you're going to visit your, like my parents are just around the corner, I could go and sort of be like, well, I know that other than their trip to the shop, my dad actually, I don't think has left the house for ages, other than to go on one walk a day maybe, and he hasn't done that every day and they've been careful about it. I would be much more confident to put myself in a room with them for both my actions and their actions. I know that I've been being very sensible and I know that they have. I don't know that about other people on a train, even if, because on trains I assume they will, because they've said don't use public transport unless you have to, but there's going to be lots of people in the group that have to. So unless it was only 1 in 10 people who normally get public transport to work that still get public transport to work, then they're going to be overcrowded. So what are they going to do? Have queues to get on trains, only let a certain number on? I can't see that happening.
This is it. If they go, right, well, you've got 50 people who want to catch this train, only 20 can go on at a time, so, and then more people are turning up for the later trains that happen, so you're more of a queue,
and then queues and crowds at train stations.
I get to work 2 hours late, so I'm only getting paid for doing like a 5-hour, my 8-hour shift, and then it takes me forever to get home. And it's like, well, is that justifying my time and the cost of commuting to get there and back? At that point, like
no provisions also mentioned, so that's confusing at best. Thankfully, as I say, keep saying thankfully, we're in Wales, so we know that basically nothing's opening before the 1st of June, and even then, it doesn't look likely. They basically said, essentially, the only things we're changing is that we're not limiting how many times you can go out for exercise, and you can go to a garden centre. Everything else is they're also making moves so that certain essential council services, I've said before, recycling centres, tips, and potentially libraries can open. I'm actually all for that, because libraries, it would be quite easy to temper the number of people coming in and social distance in them, but also they are a fairly essential hub for some people who don't have access to sort of good broadband and things like that, who might really need it. Universal credit, for example, you have to apply for online. Lots of people will now be in a position where they need to apply for universal credit, and if they haven't got computers at home or smartphones, they need libraries to be open, basically. So I'm on board with those. I think they're sensible and do make sense, and are low risk, or if managed well, could be low risk.
Thing is, Ellie mentioned earlier the rate of infection, the R number, which is currently, I believe, at 0.8.
In Wales, it's 0.8
in
currently.
Wales, it's 0.8, which, I mean, and now they're sort of loosening restrictions, which I guess means that they think it's an acceptable level.
Yes. Basically, it means it's going to, if it just stayed at 0.8, that means gradually the number of infections is, because one person won't necessarily infect that other one person, it will gradually go down if nothing changes.
If it stayed at 0.8 over the next 3 months, that would mean an additional 800 deaths in Wales.
Over the next 3 months.
Over the next 3 months.
We heard this on the Wales Today programme, which came immediately following Boris's statement, because it wanted to do, okay, what does this mean for Wales?
But it only has to go up to 1.1% for that to mean an extra 7,000 deaths over 3 months instead of 800. That's the sort of scale we're talking about now. Just tiny fluctuations in that percentage is going to have huge ramifications, really, and also it's important to remember the delay. Yeah. So you don't know what effect changes are having until kind of it's already gone further than you. The pendulum has swung further than you know by the time you start seeing changes, which now, I'm very cautious about. Bear in mind, they were saying on the thing we were watching today, this is just in Wales, these numbers, so the deaths in Wales so far have been under 2,000. Oh yeah, they've been 1,111. So whereas in like the UK, 30, over 30,000 now. Well over 30,000, so, depending on what your source is, which I can't actually seem to get a proper source. So if you're looking at these numbers in terms of this is just in Wales, so far there's been less than 2,000, but if the R rate went back past 1%, we'd be looking at another 7,000 deaths over 3 months. Which would be essentially more than tripling our current number of deaths. So scale that up to the entire UK and you'd be looking over 100,000 deaths comfortably. I don't know if they're absolutely transposable figures, because that might also come down to our population density and a few other things like that. But it's true, but nonetheless, it's kind of an indicator. If anything, it would be worse in England. It certainly means that we should be, you know, if this is happening, if they're starting to loosen things, that doesn't mean, brilliant, go and, you know, hang out with your mates and interact and hug people. And, you know, you've still got to be careful because it can go back up. Yeah, and that's the worry, is that it's going to give a lot of people the impression that they can be less careful because that's the advice. So I just wish they were being, well, I'm really glad that the Welsh government has stuck to its guns and gone, we're not changing anything other than very minor adjustments. Scottish Parliament, even more so, and actually Nicola Sturgeon has been, Mark Drayford did an announcement basically immediately after Boris's announcement that just kind of reiterated, those are the rules for England, we're doing it this way, absolutely stick to the stay-at-home advice. You've got to imagine there's going to be like additional pressure though on Wales and Scotland, now England are going this way, whatever the information is, England are pressing forward, and there's going to be people who live in Wales but get a lot of their work or business in England, going, well, I can't. Yeah, it's going to be very tricky for people who commute, because quite a lot of people who live in Newport, we're only just over the border basically. Or Chepstow, Newport, they might live here. I know people who work in Bristol and live here. There's going to be crossover over the borders, so what happens in England will obviously affect us. Also, England have been told that if they want to, they can drive and go for exercise elsewhere. They're probably not going to even be aware that the rules are different in Wales. So they might easily pop in their car and go, I'll go for a lovely hike up Pen y Fan. And it's just like, it's going to have a knock-on effect here. And I'm very worried that the overall gist that will come through is you can relax. And like I said, we're on for a second peak. That's happening. It's going to happen. I want to be wrong. I don't think I am wrong. I think that's where we're heading. Nicola Sturgeon has been particularly outspoken. Yes, I liked it a lot. And she's been complaining, and I can't say I blame her, because she's been kind of kept out of a bit of the decision making, of not being told ahead of this message what was going on. Yeah, she said I shouldn't be hearing the new announcements on the front of the Sunday papers. No, right. Exactly. Boris Johnson hasn't put this by her, hasn't put this by us, hasn't put this by Parliament even. She said, I'd like to have been able to discuss this stuff in a Cobra meeting, but there hasn't been one. And so, as well as kind of being excluded from some of this stuff and having some of this information withheld from her when she's supposed to be, the First Minister, and in Scotland. But on top of that, she's also faced quite an amount of sort of unfair criticism over the past couple of months in terms of, like, to give one example, there was a point where she was advocating in her daily briefing people should be wearing masks, and that led to a certain amount of contempt from some people because they were saying, oh, well, that's not the current messaging. 2 days later, Boris Johnson says we should be wearing masks, and to people say, oh, sorry, no, she was right. No, they say, no, well, she's trying to preempt the Prime Minister. So she can't win unless she does exactly what the President, exactly what the Prime Minister says and wants, which, when that Prime Minister is Boris Johnson, that is not a position I would want to be in.
I think what she's going for now, and I can't blame her, is, do you know what? Fuck you, Boris. I'm going to look after the interests of my people, and you're not playing ball with us, so I'm not going to wait to follow your lead. I'm going to do what's best here. That's all well and good. Same thing goes for Wales, but quite a lot of the money that we will rely on to run things like the furlough scheme, that's all Westminster that deal with that. So eventually, Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland's hands will be tied by what England decide to do. So we're all at their mercy anyway. That being said, I'm glad I'm over this side of the border, because we've got a little bit more protection and a little bit more leeway. But yeah, I do feel for Nicola Sturgeon. I think she's actually behaved basically perfectly through this, as far as I can tell. She's done the best she can with the information she's got and with the powers that she has. She can't just go, right, I'm gonna do everything. Like, she's had to follow Westminster's lead, but for doing so she's been stricter, firmer, as clear as she possibly can be, whereas the messaging from Westminster has from day one been vague and wishy-washy, and that's not helpful. That is really unhelpful, because if the people don't really know what they're supposed to be doing, then you're going to have people not doing the right thing. And oh god, emotion-wise, today has been a tough one, because before they'd even done the announcement, I sort of said to you, didn't I? I'm switching between, I've got 3 states, sort of numb, where I'm just like, does not compute, just putting one foot in front of the other because I can't really handle it, sweeping over into very, very angry, and then sometimes swimming back over into fucking scared. Because ultimately, I don't want it to be the case, but I think we're on track for a second peak anyway. I think even if they'd kept everything as it was, we were on for a second peak after the debacle of VE Day and Bank Holiday weekend. So we're on for a second peak, but also, like, that means we weren't even out of the woods. And at least, God forbid, if I caught it today, if I'd actually started showing symptoms this week and needed to go into the hospital, and God forbid got very ill with it and needed to go to the ICU, I knew there was room, like, for anybody I was concerned for, any loved ones. If this peaks, as I suspect it will, we'll start seeing an increase 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from then, all of the people that those people have been infecting in the interim will also start to show symptoms. It's going to skyrocket, and in 4 weeks' time, 6 weeks' time, thereabouts, if we are in a second peak, there isn't going to be room in the ICU for everyone. That is going to be down into that, like, we decide who gets the ventilator territory. My mum said something to me yesterday which resonated, which I might have mentioned on here already, but I don't think I did, which is, realistically, I don't think they would have built those field hospitals if they didn't expect them to be used at some point, and I'm inclined to agree with her on that one. They've been cagey about the messaging all the way through this, and essentially I feel like it's not been strict. Also today's announcement, he is going to test people at airports and have a strict quarantine.
And he said that
it's fucking May. You should have been doing this in February.
Well, he sort of said that as kind of, oh, well done, guys, because of all the hard work we've been doing, kind of bringing the infection rate down. Now we can introduce this. You could have been isolating people at airports anyway. Like,
yeah,
what?
You
oh,
could
well,
have been banning flights in from high-risk countries.
You don't go sort of, oh, well, we've already got some, so you might as well come in.
Yeah.
But, you know, well, everyone else is socially distancing. If you might have it, maybe we test and we keep you isolated.
It's a bit rich when somebody's been at home for 7 weeks straight and hasn't hugged their loved ones for 7 weeks, but you're still letting anybody come in and do whatever they like. You'd be like, well, what the fuck, dudes? So yeah, it feels very much like shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted. But I guess at least they're doing it now. But yeah, the whole thing, like, I feel very, very uneasy. I am back to how I felt at the start of this. First time in a few weeks I've actually been a bit tearful and sort of stomach in knots and feel like I can see where this is going, and it isn't good. That's how we're feeling over here. I feel like this is an absolute shit show that has been mismanaged, but I am at least clinging on to gratitude that I am in Wales. So at least I know that I am not going to be pressured to break any of the rules anytime soon. But down the line, it may be a knock-on effect that 3 weeks after whatever England does, we have to follow because of money issues. But I will take any fucking port in a storm. I will take any blessing I can at the moment, I think.
There's a lot of unease, unrest, a lot of doubt, a lot of uncertainty. So we're going to have some pizza and probably watch some comedy and watch some wrestling.
Yes, Money in the Bank.
Yes, it's going to be...
Too late for you to watch it now because it was last night when you're watching this. But
that's not strictly true. You could still sign up to the network. It will still be on there. But it's too late for you to watch it live.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so obviously if you're keeping up with the narrative on all the, you know, on all the contemporary wrestling news sites like you should be, then you'll be kind of going, oh, well, now I'm avoiding spoilers, and you've got yourself behind. You've been a fool. But if you are doing that, you probably know about the wrestling anyway. You don't need me to tell you. Anyway.
Right. All right. I think we're going to have to call it a day there. I am so ready for pizza.
Yes.
And also, tomorrow I'm taking Poppet to the vet for an x-ray. So we will see how her leg's doing. She is pissed off. Oh, well, she's pissed off. I'm terrified, occasionally crying. How are you doing?
I don't know.
Fair enough. All right, so update tomorrow. Bye.